All right, everybody. So today, back on the podcast, we've got Alberto Nunez. How we doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. As good as you can be at this point, given the context of the situation, right?
Yeah, yeah. And we'll get into that too. So, for people who are listening, this is now, I think, the fourth Q&A episode we're doing. So, actually, as of now, none of it have been released, so I haven't gotten any feedback on them. So, at least to the four. But as with the other ones, you guys can let me know what you think about these. I don't know if I'll keep doing. I mean, I'll do regular podcasts too. I don't know how much I'll do the Q&As, but something to mix it up. We got some good questions here. But before we get into that, what's going on with you in your lifting world right now, Berto?
Oh, just got myself into that prepping thing again. So yeah, we're in too deep at this point. You've done it enough times where like the prelims of it are just not very exciting, nor do you feel like much has changed. You actually wonder, do I still love this as much as
Mm,
maybe I did at the start? But a lot of it is you just learn to conserve energy. So I remember my first prep, like day one, you march out of bed. Literally, you march out of bed like just robot mode, and everything is how it's supposed to be. And eventually you just relax a little bit because that last leg is going to be quite the adventure and you better have kick for that. So
mm.
we're at that last leg now where yeah, roughly I think there's about 4 pounds to go, maybe three.
Okay.
And yeah, those are the toughest. Like under 165 is where it all of a sudden just the weather changes for me.
Yeah.
So we're in it, man. It's exciting. It's I guess what I wanted at the start, but now you get it and you're like, oh shoot, like this
What was
is
your last season? 2 years ago?
22,
3 years ago.
22.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Now, in that season, you felt like you had brought up your back significantly compared to prior seasons, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think back whole posterior chain, honestly, because I,
Okay.
I really mastered my hinge, so glutes, hamstrings too. So all the stuff from the back just really revamped.
And what about, do you have anything where you're like, hey, 2025, I really think I'm going to see improvement in this or that area?
Yeah, so I think I put so much focus on the lats that the upper back was something that just it was starting to get a little contrasting there. So we started to prioritize upper back a lot more, and upper back I think is just as strong as the lower portions of the back now too, and had never done any dynamic erector work either.
Okay.
So started training erectors in a more direct fashion, and same thing there. Like I can see the difference already. So that'll add a little interest to something interesting to some poses. Also, adductor work. I had never
Mm.
done direct adductor work because they have always been all right.
Yeah.
So same thing with those. And the parts that I improved on upon last season where I really cracked the code, I think those have also grown a little bit. Um, delts always just seem to progress in some way.
Mm.
I just really wish I could have figured out a few more things out for my pecs.
Okay.
That's the only thing that's kind of driving me nuts right now.
What specifically for, I mean, I guess just like adductor machine, like what do you do for adductors and upper back specifically that's not targeting your lats as well?
Yeah, so for upper back, I don't know. Like there used to be all these rules of thumb in the weight room, like when you're pressing, like hey, not only scaps back, but keep the scaps back.
Mm.
And it's crazy because I always noticed that people didn't actually do this. Like my buddy Bryce Lewis, amazing power lifter. I just remember watching him bench press, and it was like his scaps were so relaxed, even though he would cue people to do it. I'm like,
Hmm.
this makes no sense. But I would actually do it, and it started to cause some dysfunction back there, like just
Mm.
creaky shoulders, things didn't feel good. So even on rows, like one of the rules of thumb was like keep your shoulders away from your ears.
Mm.
And I got away from that. And now when I'm pulling up here, there's two variations. You want one with a little bit more scapular depression, T3, T4. Um, and then the other variation's a little bit more, it's like upwards. So I started playing with that a little bit more, and especially that last variation. Yeah, you're going to bring your shoulders up a little bit. So that's done some stuff for me.
Okay.
And adductors, yeah, I just got on that machine that,
Yeah,
just always
yeah,
avoided.
yeah. Sure, sure. Cool, man. Yeah, it's interesting. So I just had, who was the last one I had? I had Jeff Reese Schofield, Martin Tomich, and Landon from Basement Bodybuilding as like the three other Q&As. And I think I probably mentioned this on all three of those that this is the leanest I've ever been in my life.
Ooh,
And
yep.
I had basically 2020 was the leanest I had been. Didn't get as lean in 21, and then tied 2020 last year in 2024. And I liked the look, and I was kind of like, yeah, like that's as much as I need to be. And then this year I said, let me just push it. So I pushed my like true weight, not just a low, but my true weekly average weight is about 6 pounds less than last year, which was already pretty lean. So I'm definitely feeling it. And what I will say though is it's just very humbling because I mean, as you know, I've been in this game for 20 years. Like I know how people overestimate body fat and overestimate the amount of muscle fat and all that stuff. Um, and yet, even then, I don't know if I would have said I would still have to lose so much more to get like contest lean. Because I mean, I've got like, if I take a back shot, I've got like striations through the lats, I've got all that stuff. But then I'll see you, right? And again, obviously, like your level of vascularity, there's a genetic component there and all that stuff. But still, I look at that and I'm like, damn, man, I'm still probably another 10 pounds from where you are now. And you're still 4 pounds away from contest lean. It really is humbling and just always crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of the catch 22 to muscle. It contours fat so well, which is great on the way up. That's why we've all had those maybe bulks where we got went a little too far because it still looked all right.
Yeah.
But then when you bring it back down, you're like, oh, okay, here's where it's kind of working against me a little bit. But people dry out differently because, like for example, like striated lats,
Mm,
something that I'm just barely now starting to get a little bit of that.
mm,
Whereas, you have a very, like your lats are very, very dry looking. So we all have our spots and we can't help but look at the spots
sure.
that are still soft and the order's never going to change,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. So what are you thinking weight? Well, like, what is your goal competition weight? I mean, obviously you're just going to go on a look,
Yeah.
but like, what's your hope?
Um, I think I'm a way lighter than last year. And
You
well, a
said
few
way lighter?
reasons. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So my meal timing is just definitely changed drastically.
Mm,
Like I basically stopped drinking water at 3.
okay.
And my dinner is at like sometimes like 5:30, 6:30. Don't
Okay.
go to bed until like 10:30.
Mm. Are you
Right?
not thirsty?
No, no, no,
Interesting.
no, not at all, not at all. I also like power load on water early
I was going to
because,
ask how much you're drinking early in
um,
the day.
yeah, it's quite a bit because I make sure I'm hydrated for my late morning workout. That's typically when I
Okay.
train. So after that, I'm just done, and I'm just going to the bathroom all afternoon, all evening. So I'm like, you know what? I hate the waking up to use the bathroom, and that's
It's a
something that
serious problem for me too.
yeah, yeah. So that was my solution. So I'm kind of doing like this little water cut thing, like
Mm,
that power lifters use, where they kind of like water load, but at a micro level every day. And I think because of that, and because there's always more fat to lose, like people don't realize that. I'd like to get leaner just because the talent pool's gotten so much better, and I think that's the one thing I can do that is unique. Is like let me push it, ideally to as lean as I got maybe when I got my pro card.
okay.
Um, that's probably the leanest I've ever been.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, but much less muscle, much less muscle. So I like to do that with my modern day versions of muscle. And I think last time I prepped, I think I saw two Waynes under 160.
Okay.
And I think this time that might have to be an average, especially given the feeding situation. Also, like the whole volumetrics game, like at a certain point, you just stop playing that. I'm still drinking a lot of my carbs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't even now I don't like the feeling of like bloatiness that people try to
Interesting.
achieve when they're
Yeah.
dieting. You just realize that you're just gonna be hungry, so
Yeah.
you're just at peace with it, and and that no matter how messed up you feel, there's like no meal that's going to cure that. It's going to
Sure.
be like weeks afterwards. So you're just like, oh, whatever. Let me just get convenient food in, especially now with a kid, and move on with my day. So
It's interesting how you see I mean, not for everybody, but you definitely see that shift a lot where It's like first couple of contest preps. It's like all the sugar-free Jello and sugar-free gum and the diet sodas and all these things. And people tend to get away from that, it seems. I'm kind of intermediate. I still
Yeah.
do. I'm definitely volume eating, but it's like vegetables and fruit. It's not a lot of artificial stuff. But I definitely, I mean, you maybe see my story where I post these like huge, what I call them parfaits, but just yogurt and like a pound and a half of fruit. I still enjoy that, but it's not all the artificial crap that it used to be.
Yeah, I also do my fruits, my veggies, especially fruits have a way of really calming things down because you get that sweetness, but you don't want to go do that two, three more times.
Mhm.
Um, and the water, the fiber intake. So fruits, I definitely that's probably the thing I leverage the most for satiety. But yeah, I think sometimes when you're constantly trying to get this sensation out of your mind, um, just make it worse for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is probably a topic not that many people are interested in, but I just want to go back for a second to the drinking thing and having to pee because this is something I feel like either I'm naturally predisposed to it or I just train myself to just go too frequently. But like in high school, I would, gallon and a half of water, like all this water. And as anybody who drinks a lot of water knows, you'll go from like a 3 out of 10, I gotta pee, to a 9 out of 10, I gotta pee pretty quickly. Whereas the average
Yes.
person who's having like 8 cups of water, that could be hours and hours, right? So what I think I somewhat did is train myself to like, oh, if I'm at a 3, I should go. So it like if I gotta get in the car or something, it's not gonna be a problem. So because of that, I think my body is just so sensitive to like if you have to go at all, I'm gonna like be woken up. So I mean, literally, I don't know the last time I've slept through the night since I mean, literally, I was a kid.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think I have pushed back, like, okay, I'm not going to drink as much, but I think maybe I'm going to try even to the level you're talking about, like 6 hours beforehand, because it's very frustrating, especially dieting. Obviously, the sleep's already disrupted. Every night this week, I would go to sleep at 9. I wake up at midnight. I wake up at 3. And then from 3 to 5, it's just, I literally describe it as like I'm in a battle. Like I try to go to sleep, I'm
Yeah.
up. It's just exhausting.
Yeah, no, it's exactly as you described. Like, like you try to sometimes stay in bed when it's at a 3 and you're like, I
Hmm.
can tough it out. I'll make it to that next leg. And nah, you're not going to win that. You're going to wake up
Yeah.
in an hour and it will be at a 9.
Yeah.
So yeah, because sleep is so important right now. I much rather do it that way. And it's the only thing I have found so far that works where I can't sleep
Yeah. I'll
throughout the
give it a
night.
shot. So is your last meal then, like, do you literally even avoid, like, for example, these Ninja Creamies Steve Hall turned me on to? That's a
Yeah.
decent amount of liquid, right? I mean, that's a couple cups. So
Yes.
that I think is kind of maybe screwing me too. Do you avoid even like a bunch of fruit in your last meal or anything like that?
Yeah, usually that last meal is probably the lightest, just
Yeah.
because it does help with sleep quality. So usually it's just some sort of animal protein, and we're good with nothing else.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, yeah. But you know what? There's a lot of things you can pull from the anorexia literature, and
Mm.
I've been trying to look at this whole peeing thing, like
Yeah.
to see if there's anything there. Um, Nothing so far. Nothing
Really
so far. Yeah, yeah.
interesting. What time do you have your first meal?
Usually maybe about 9.
Okay, so 9 to 5. So you're it's a relatively small eating window then, maybe nine to
Yeah,
six.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's usually 9, then maybe like 2, and then 6, and I'm done for the day.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty similar for me. I just when I was talking to Brian Borstein recently, I didn't realize he's consistently been like 11 to 6 for many years. Like, just and it seems like more and more people have just kind of accepted, yep, 3 meals a day, even in a relatively small window, you're fine. I personally never noticed any issue with it, especially when dieting. It's just nice to
Yeah.
have the more substantial meals.
Yeah, you're either eating or you're not, and you're just okay with that. But
Yep,
yeah, yeah, the whole customizing that. It's funny, we all kind of end up in a similar place, like with like what works.
yep.
I think is key. I don't know how the people who are eating 5 meals a day prepping do it.
Yeah, it's yeah. Cool, man. So let's get into some of these questions. The first one is a perfect transition. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but let's get into actual selection of it. So he asks, how to do proper exercise selection for back training. So again, we talked about that a little bit, but let's say like, hey, you know what? I want to target low back versus lats versus upper back. How do you even start with that process?
Yeah. So I guess to start the more compressed or short torso you are, probably the least variation you're going to need, or you can be able to get away with. Um, but for most of us who you just aren't put together that way, I mean, you'll notice this, like the bodybuilders with the greatest backs tend to have these like shorter
Mm,
torsos. I think you could probably split that up into four, maybe five categories. Again, an upper back motion, one that's kind of pulling the scap up, one that's kind of like depressing it, like a hammer strength high row is a good example of this. And then for the lat work, maybe something a vertical pull where your arms are out here. It's going to, yes, involve a lot of lat, but also the teres major is going to get a lot of play there too. And then, the infamous sagittal pull, or the diagonal pull rather. I think that is probably the fourth one. And then the rectal work, I think it's kind of underrated because especially if you get good at your hinges and spinal control, you're just kind of in this isometric position the whole time. So you will grow up to a certain point, but it might be worth experimenting with that. I saw almost immediate growth because, again, relatively untrained, you could say. So it was really only like 3 sets a week, and that was, it kind of grew like a noob almost.
yeah.
So yeah, those would probably be I guess the five categories. If you're performing at least one of those each week, you should be okay. Maybe two variations if that area is lacking on you in particular. But it really is that simple.
Yeah, yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. I keep my back training relatively simple. I train back twice a week. I do a vertical and a horizontal pull. Now, I say that as somebody who like back has always just been one of my stronger points, relatively speaking. So I haven't had to do that, as we discussed previously. Oftentimes, the people who have, they're gifted in a certain area, and then they're asked for their advice, and those are often the people you shouldn't be asking. So like I would say my advice for, let's say, pecs or something else would probably be even better because I've had to go down that rabbit hole versus, back is again for me relatively come a little bit easier.
Yeah, we all have at least like one body part. I think that it's like, no matter what I've done, it's just kind of grown the same,
Yeah.
and there's just not too many lessons to learn from that.
Yeah. Cool. So Michael Alexander says, I love that he eats pizza on prep, but how can he accurately track that, the oil, etc.?
Um, Yeah, there's an estimation tax, I guess, right? So whatever you truly think it is, not the most optimistic thing you found on a database, add
Right.
20% to it, right? And if it's really worth it to you, like you take the hit, and I think if you're doing it right, you're most likely actually going to be slightly overshooting.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's something a little different from other preps as well. I think every weekend, like I've gone out to eat. It's been less selective. This past week, actually, we went to the zoo on a Wednesday, and we had pizza right afterwards. And yeah, eventually, you've just eaten enough things, or you've tried to make your own lower cal version of that at
Hmm.
home.
Yeah, yeah.
So you kind of know what parts these things consist of and what you have to replace for this and that. Like I think applesauce on like baked goods. I forgot what it replaces. I think maybe butter. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, something like that.
Um, so yeah, a lot of it's just practice, practice, practice. But you never get good at this skill if you don't practice it. And to be honest, at first you're not very good at it, but eventually, like yeah, like you and I can look at a slice of pizza and we can probably come up with numbers that are very similar, at least when it comes to the caloric and protein values.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely caution people who are new to it just because I mean, so like I'm going to the beach this coming week, and anybody who's been like a Jersey boardwalk, a piece of pizza is huge. I mean, that could easily be 700 calories in a slice, but you go on, whatever your favorite app is, and you say one slice cheese pizza, and it's like 280 calories, and it's like you really have to understand the context of that. I think just going by weight in general, if obviously this doesn't apply if you're out, but if you are somebody who's like getting takeout and you want to have it with the family, weight can be really helpful because you just kind of know there's a range of calories that a certain ounce of something would have, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
even if you don't have the exact nutrition panel on it. If you have a cookie, it's probably somewhere between 100 and 120 calories per ounce, right? If you have like a lasagna, it's not going to be that high because it's not all oil, but it might be 60 calories per ounce, whatever. And so that can be really helpful to start almost training yourself to get an idea of some of these things. And then after you've done that for a while, then when you're out, you can have a pretty good idea.
Yeah, yeah, but it takes exposure, and some people just completely avoid that. And yeah, you
Mhm.
don't want to jump into the deep end right away, but getting some practice early with some easier things like that goes a long way. But also, last thing on that topic, something that just isn't practice as much as like you're also allowed to leave some on your plate,
Right. Yep.
right? It's hard the first few times, but man, the self-efficacy you build through that is the server just takes your plate. You're like, yeah, I'm okay, but I'm actually crying inside.
Yeah, I have a hard time
Yeah,
with not finishing what's there, definitely mentally.
it really builds you up. But yeah, you do it a few times, maybe at that intro level that you described, and if you're still making progress with your fat loss phase, and shoot, you're nailing it.
Cool. All right, so Martinez Dom, any advice on a gaining phase where you keep calories low for the week and have one off-plan meal? So I'm guessing they mean like how would you
Mm,
structure maybe training around that, or how would you just go about your week where you're planning on lower throughout the week and then maybe let's say like a cheat day or cheat meal or something. And I specifically actually do that, so we'll go with you first and then I'll touch into that.
Man, there's so many people who use similar systems, and I'm sure they're just everyone's version of it's going to be a little different. I think that's where most people end up, where it's like, hey, Monday through Friday, when you're kind of, deep into your traditional schedule, you're just eating in a almost robotic way, or a way that would seem robotic to the average person. Um, and then weekends, yeah, you have a few items that are outside of the usual menu. I think for me, it just kind of depends on the person, because there are certain folks where if you keep the calories too low throughout the week, then they really express that hunger on the weekends. So there's probably an amount that you can get away with where you can still behave the way you want to by the time you get to your social eating. So that's kind of worth playing around with, because I mean, think about it this way, right? Like if you got um yeah, or how about this? Like you want to eat a lot of food at this one particular restaurant, right? Maybe it's one of those Brazilian steakhouses. Like you don't eat as much so that you can really plow through that food. And I think people unknowingly kind of do that with themselves when they use these sort of systems. So
Yep.
for me, honestly, what kind of works, and especially once you're nice and settled and far away enough from your last cutting phase, is to just try to keep things pretty linear. And I think for most people, especially for most men, um, it's you can make that fit into your caloric budget. Like, well, I mean, well, what is a dish at a restaurant? I don't know, 1,500 calories, like almost worst case.
Yeah.
You could probably make that work. And if anything, I would rather have people self-correct so long as it's not too strenuous and it doesn't feel terrible to them the day after, right? Like, what happens after you eat a lot on a Saturday night, right? It's like you wake up that morning and you're like, man, that breakfast, I could have just the protein. So yeah, I would just be
So just to
cautious of
clarify for
like,
people, you mean self-correct because you're going to be full, so your body's just going to adapt
you
and
might as
digest later.
well. Yeah, you might as well. It just
Yeah.
kind of comes naturally to you,
Yep.
right? So I would just be cautious about not having like these major peaks and valleys, because then people tend to act like hungry people by the time they do get to that meal they've
Yep.
been planning and looking forward to.
Yeah. So I think that is generally the better advice, and it's not really what I do, and I'll explain why, but I think that would be good advice for the majority of people. So when it comes to intermittent fasting, when it comes to high and low days and all this stuff, my experience, and I think that of many people, is that over time, we've just found a lot of that doesn't matter in that, like if the calories are matched and all that, intermittent fasting's fine. Not having high and low days is fine, right? It used to be all these articles on like, this is how you have to have your low, medium, and high day, and like this is how you carb cycle and all that. And that's mostly gone away, I think, which is a good thing. So back way long ago, I used to have these massive cheat days. I mean, 10, 12,000 calorie cheat days. Thankfully, I don't do that anymore. I wouldn't even find that enjoyable anymore.
Yeah.
It was definitely, I don't want to call it like an eating disorder because it was like a coach who told me to do that in the first place, but it just wasn't good. Um, what I do these days, it's not because of some magic that I'm sure I could write an article and talk about you're going to lose the fat this day and you're going to gain the muscle this day, and that's going to lead to this recomp effect. And put your high calories around your hard training sessions. And I could understand that there's some argument for that. But truly, the reason I do it, I just enjoy it this way. So I have very busy days earlier in the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just super busy. So I have done a 24-hour fast from Sunday night to Monday night for years and years and years. I literally prefer that because I can go from patient to patient to patient and not think about eating. I know Meadows used to talk about doing that actually. I've never noticed a negative from it. Obviously, that creates a big deficit. Again, throughout the week, I just kind of eat what I want, which if I'm talking quote unquote off season and I'm averaging 3,000 calories a week, that might still only be low 2000s on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then on the weekends, like Friday through Sunday, I'm home. We might be going out. There's a lot more going on. And I could have, 4,000 calories on Friday, 2,500 to 3,000 on Saturday, and then, again, same thing on Sunday. And to some people, that sounds like, I mean, that's like a massive fluctuation and everything. I get what you're saying, like, hey, how much is a restaurant meal? 1,500. Yeah, to me, eating the 4,000 is pretty easy. Um, I haven't seen any negative to it and I enjoy it. But I wouldn't say that's how most people should eat it. I just haven't seen any negative and it just totally fits with my lifestyle and I can kind of eat freely. I go to, there's a birthday party, there's this. I don't even really have to think about it. And to your point, like the reason Sunday is lower typically than Friday and Sunday, or yeah, Saturday, excuse me, is lower than Friday and Sunday is because if I eat a lot Friday, I tend to eat a little bit less on Saturday. So this isn't like I plan to go in it and eat this exact amount. It's just kind of how I naturally am. But I would really put out there that for some people, that could probably lead to a little bit of a binge purge cycle. You have to make sure you're okay with this. To me, there's just no negatives at all. But I'm curious your thoughts on that.
I think you ended up there in a very organic way where it just fits with your life. Um, it's convenient, if anything, and it allows you to be, if anything, more present when you need to be. But this is something you created kind of from scratch and based off your past experiences, and it just works really well for you. And I think you start with something a little bit more generic, maybe along the lines that I described.
Yep.
But then eventually that thing can morph into almost whatever. Like that's the one thing, like you said, it's a lot of these unnecessary rules. Like over the years, we've kind of weeded them out. So yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. I can see how that would work for you, and all the red flags that I would be looking out for, they're non-existent in your situation. Like
And I
again,
would
like
just, yeah, and I would encourage if somebody hears that, like, oh, I want to try that, I would really pay attention to how you feel throughout the week. And the reason I say that is because in the off season, I'm just calling it off season. I know I don't compete, but like in that time period, I'm genuinely eating as much as I want during the week. And again, sometimes
mhm.
because I'm busy, I'm actually still having to force down my lunch. So if I want some avocado, I'm eating as much of that as I want. I get home and I'm kind of busy. I have whatever I want. So I would not do it if you're finding that like, oh man, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday. I really want more, but I'm not going to have it so that I can eat a lot on the weekend. Like I would specifically not do that. And when dieting, I have noticed that if I try to keep a 4,000 calorie refeed twice a week, I then do have to take away more during the week. And now I am thinking throughout the week, I'm hungry, I want more. So the best way for me to cut is basically just lessen the refeeds or remove them. So I would just really encourage anybody to pay attention to the cues because this is not a, hey, let me just starve myself so I could eat as much as I want later.
Yeah, and if you ever really pay attention or have access to someone who's just a very weight stable adult or behavioral ectomorph, they're rare, endangered species, but they're out there. You'll notice that they usually do something very similar to that,
Yeah.
right? It's just their own pattern, whereas you just, you kind of got under the hood and you figured out your own way to like kind of be this person. So
Yep.
no, I think it works.
All right, so this one is from Training Log. Are knee sleeves an appropriate tool for bodybuilding? I know they provide long-term joint health benefits, but tried them for the first time and they helped out a significant bit at the bottom. My knees are great, but just wanted to see what it feels like. Should I just go in increments and weight with the sleeves or use them for any tweaks in the future? So I've actually never used knee sleeves. I never care to use them, so this would be definitely specifically for you.
Um, Man, so I'm splitting hairs here, but they give you the most assistance where you want the most like torque, and that's going to be at the bottom position of these squat patterns. So even if it's slight, like I just want the strength curve to be what I want it to be. Um, I don't think they're going to make or break you. Again, this is just kind of a someone who's gone off into the deep end with bodybuilding and wants every little percent. I think where they help more is they reduce inhibition because the amount of rebound you get like isn't that much. It's maybe I think like 5%, like best case. And this is like a when I compare a lot of people's like max squats. Um, but they do help with again warming up the joint. They help with I think where it's underrated is like proprioception. You have something on your knees, so you kind of know where things are tracking and where you are in time and space. Um, but I think it's kind of left up to the person. I don't use them for those reasons. I think one, I'm kind of a natural squatter, so the proprioception thing, just not a big issue for me. And yeah, I just want all the torque at the bottom basically.
Cool. Cool, cool. All right, interesting one. What are the biggest adjustments you've made prepping as a father?
Uh, yeah, I just have to be on schedule with things a lot more. Like I can't wait to be in the mood to do the work. So like before I hopped on this podcast, I made sure all my posing was done for the day. It used to be something that I would split up into like we have a symmetry round and then a muscularity round, and the symmetry I would do in the morning and the muscularity I would do after my training. I'd rather not spend more time at the gym. So it's a lot of little things like that. Like the volumetrics thing with food and how that's less of a theme now. A lot of it's like what's the most convenient thing I can have right now for this meal. So sometimes it's just like, hey, I have a whey protein shake and some coconut water. And like I'm good because, usually in the evenings I take over the child duties. So yeah, a lot of it's you just have to be more organized, which yeah, there's a learning curve there. But also what I've really enjoyed is like how much bandwidth the prep takes up like all the unnecessary stuff kind of goes away. Like when
Right.
when I'm with her, I'm present, I'm there. I I completely forget that I'm prepping. So yeah, it's been an adjustment because I need, they come first. So I need to figure out a way to make time and have what I'm trying to do not interfere with any of the family stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting as you see people progress through life with, you're in college and it's just like, well, I'll lift whenever I want to lift and I can eat whenever I want to eat and like all these things. And then, whether it's obviously kids being the biggest thing, but even like dogs, partners, businesses, like obviously there's many people who do it. And this is why it's always a pet peeve of mine for people who give those as excuses. Like they don't have time. It's like, bro, like I know people with multiple businesses, multiple kids, and they're crushing it. So I hate that kind of stuff. But still, those people do have to be more and more regimented, and everything becomes like a set time, which even for me can be hard sometimes because I don't like to be rushed. And so for me, it does come down to like I now get up at 5 a.m. pretty much every morning. I go to sleep at 9:30. And that's it, it hurts your social life. It hurts your ability to do things, but that's just when it has to be done. Because if I try to lift when I used to lift, which would be like 9, it just doesn't work. I have to be here and there. Just for me, it doesn't work. So I do it at 5 a.m. now.
Yeah, yeah, man. One thing I'm very fortunate of this is that I think is I got into this fatherhood business. Like there was already a high level of competency when it came to this thing.
Hmm.
I cannot imagine what it might be like for people who
Their first time.
their first time and they just want to get started because, year one, year two can be pretty rough. And they're like, man, I am just kind of decaying here.
Yeah.
Um, and they don't know where to start. And everything that's out there kind of sells you on like right into the deep end of the pool.
Right.
So yeah, for new parents, I really, and maybe something to put out there at some point, just you don't need much to get started. Like we are, like you think I'm a wacko because it's like I'm still going with this thing like, to get minuscule amounts of like increases in whatever I'm after. But so are you to the average person, right?
Sure.
Um, but when you start, it's just so insane. It's just so insane. Like I really do think if I only train twice a week for 30 minutes, like over these last 26 years, I'd probably have 70% of what I have right now.
Mm.
Like it's
That's
insane. Like it doesn't take
perspective.
much. Doesn't take much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's just as you see that perspective change over time, it's always very interesting. Did you have in your first couple of seasons, like Eric Helms, I think his first season, he talked about how he gained 40 pounds in like a matter of months, if I'm remembering correctly. Did you have anything like that after your first one?
No, I think I gained 10 and then my body just said stop.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I think a lot of it, I think that one I wish I could have continued, but at the same time, I just really enjoyed my bodybuilding life. Like I had been doing it a little bit longer than Eric. So the way I ate, I just kind of like your little schedule, right? It's like you enjoy it. It sounds crazy to
Yeah.
people, but it's like, no, this is actually I enjoy it a lot and it actually makes everything else like work really well. So I couldn't wait to get back to it, but I had just stuck to like, I don't know, like 7 different foods over the course of the whole prep. So I couldn't digest anything like post prep.
Oh, wow.
So,
Interesting.
so yeah, I had taken carbs out and the only carb I could have was rice milk. It
Hmm.
was so frustrating. So that kind of capped me like my first season and
The only thing you could have was rice milk after the diet. Like that's the only thing you
the
could
diet,
tolerate.
only thing. Yeah.
Like you would just get like severe GI distress.
It just felt like it took forever to digest. Like the meal
Interesting.
was 2.5 times bigger than it actually was.
Huh.
Um, so yeah, no, never. And I think every other time prior after that, I kind of reversed out because that was what was in fashion.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think 10 is the most. And even now, like after this prep, I probably gained 10-ish pounds the first 2 weeks. And
That's what I was going to ask. How, obviously now things have kind of shifted towards like, hey, gain the weight back. So let's say you hit 159 or whatever it is. Actually, two questions on that. So one, how much heavier will you typically be on stage compared to your lowest weigh-in? And then
mm,
two, yeah, basically, I mean, you kind of answered it, but how quickly will you get that initial bulk up?
I think I'll probably be maybe 6 pounds heavier.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a pretty big amount. So when you say so your lowest would be like upper 150s then,
hmm
but you'll be on stage like 165.
Yeah, 165, 166. And this is
Okay.
just kind of going by what I tend to weigh around noon on most days.
Okay.
When I see those numbers. So
Oh, so
yeah,
wait, so when you say okay, so those are two different things then. You're not saying that this day that you go on stage, your morning weight would be 165. You're
no,
saying
no, no, no.
okay, you would just literally be on stage at 165.
Yeah, because how much you weigh is a tricky question because there's an overnight fasting, but then
Yeah.
that's not what's representative of your physique. Like, you look like trash in the morning. Just
That's actually super
dehydrate.
interesting because honestly, until we just said this, in my mind, I was just thinking like, okay, you hit a depleted, let's call it in this case 159,
hmm
and that I'm thinking, oh, when people are talking about they're eating up, the 2 days or whatever prior to the show, I'm thinking they're still talking about their morning weight because I only ever look at morning weight. Like that's
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
consider
yeah.
a real weight. I didn't think about how, okay, so what would be, let's say, your morning weight of the day of competition then? And then again, you said like 165, 166 on stage.
It'd probably be like 2 pounds heavier.
Okay.
So maybe like 161. But I usually to just be full at a muscular level, I do require a little bit more water than most people. I'm probably going to need to figure out a way to get about a gallon of water between morning and stage time, plus,
Okay.
some food, some sodium. Um, So yeah, no, I look like trash in the morning because
Interesting.
my muscles are just so dependent on being adequately hydrated.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, that's, I mean, I'm sure some of the audience would find it interesting too, just because again, I always think of just like weight as morning weight. So all these times I've thought about what's somebody's competition weight, I'm not factoring in my head, that 3 to 5 pounds of the actual day. Yeah, because of course night weight would be significantly more. Oh man, I think back to those stupid cheat days I used to do, and those, I mean, literally night weight could be 10, 11 pounds heavier. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So kind of you were saying, hey, if I had just done 2 days a week for whatever time, I'd be at 70%. This person's asking how to optimize training when limited by just 2 to 3 days.
Probably just follow an ABA type workout. That's probably what I would do.
Yeah.
Um, I'd probably
We do upper
just
lower or different full body ABAs.
it could be different full bodies. It could be upper lower. It probably has to be one of those two.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, what's legally a full body is kind of debatable. Like right now,
Yeah, yeah.
before my lower body days, I throw in arms. So it's technically a full body if you ask
Yeah.
some people, right? So yeah, I'd say, an ABA were just kind of cycles, and I'd probably stick with like the minimum effective dose as well when it comes to volumetrics. I'd probably focus a little bit more on exercise variety just to make sure, you get to everything and you're not trying to grow, say, side delts from your pressing or your pulling. And then I'd use a lot of for isolation work, a lot of like myo rep type work.
Hmm. Yep.
Also antagonist pairing, like super helpful and time
Yeah.
efficient. Um, and then finally, I think there is, and this is something kind of inspired by Eric. Um, that there is such thing as like bodybuilder shape, like where I don't know if you actually get much benefit once you are in bodybuilder shape to like waiting around like 3 to 5 minutes in between sets. Like you can train those energy systems to just come back quicker.
Oh, yeah.
So I think a lot of people, they don't realize that. But you eventually over time you might realize that, hey, spending on a minute in between or a minute and a half maybe between your sets and pressing just doesn't really create that big of a difference in performance drop off. So
Right, right, right.
something, yeah, I see more than I used to see because back in the day, for muscle growth, 30 to 60 seconds was kind of what they would recommend.
Yeah.
And I think people have gone really far into like the other side now, where sometimes people just sit around for 3 to 5 minutes in between
Yeah.
sets, and I'm like, I don't know if that's necessary.
Yeah, we had a similar question on the last podcast, and I'll just kind of reiterate what I said there. But regarding the rest time specifically, I almost exclusively do antagonistic pairings. So I do an upper lower split, big advocate for upper lower, and so everything is paired. And I might do 2 minutes between sets, but then ultimately that's still like 5 minutes between sets of the same muscle group. So you're getting more than enough rest. But I did a body part split maybe 2 years ago for a week. And after 1 week, I was like, dude, this is so painfully slow. Like it was literally like just chest, just back, and for me at least, I was just sitting around and I just did not like it. So I really like the back and forth. And this person didn't mention a time limit. They really just said 2 to 3 days. And that's obviously a big factor because,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
2 days at 45 minutes is dramatically different than 3 days at 90 minutes. If you're doing three 90-minute workouts, you can get everything you need. And I'm also a big fan of my reps. I've done a lot of rest pause training in my life, but more so like DC style, which
Hmm.
is really, they say 15 to 20 breaths, which is almost like 45 seconds. So it's,
Yeah.
yeah. My rep is more like, five big breaths. I've been doing my reps for the last 12 weeks and I really like them. I think they'll probably be something I continue to keep in. You can get sufficient volume. It feels better to me than drop sets. I did drop sets for the prior 12 weeks. It was fine. It was like, I was doing them on leg extension, leg curls. And it was just this 5 minute all out. Like I just had to like blast music. Like there's just no break at all. To me, the Myo reps are a really nice blend of like you're getting in a lot of volume, but you can just take a little break again, 5 seconds or five big breaths, which is maybe 15 seconds. to me, it just very much fits my preferences. So I really like them.
Yeah, with the DC, I think a lot of that was geared towards really big IFBB pros or IFBB pro hopefuls.
Hmm.
So I can see how they would need a little bit more time in between sets because
Yeah.
it's these massive systems. But yeah, myo reps it's been perfect. And like how much volume is it? I think that bothers a lot of people.
Yeah.
Whereas to me, it's just like, look, if it's working, like it's working. And what I use to measure that, because all my isolation work is basically myo reps at this point.
Is it okay?
That first set is obviously great stimulus, but it's also the proxy as to like whether or not I'm improving.
Exactly. That's what I go at too. Yeah, that first set is really like where I'm looking for the progress. Although I still, and maybe we would disagree here. I sometimes will still reserve a little bit to get the most net volume.
Mm,
Not to a level where I'm like 5 RIR on that first set so I can get more.
yeah.
But if it's like, hey, maybe that keeping it 1 RIR on that first one allows me to net another 2 or 3 reps over the entire, 5 sets of myo reps, then yeah, I'll do that. It's usually not like all out face about to explode on that first set for me at least.
I do it similar, I'd say, but also taking the many weeks that are coming ahead into consideration too,
Mm,
because I can blast myself on this preacher curl right now, but if I maybe matched the reps as last week, but the RPE was a bit lower, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna leave it there so that
yes.
I
Yeah.
don't run into a wall, next week, and I'm just stuck in mud for the next month. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah, very
totally.
similar to you.
Yeah, and that's an interesting way to think about it because I think most of us are familiar with the idea of on a individual workout, maybe we're saving a little bit on that first one so the later ones are okay. I too will do that if I'm in a dieting phase and I'm like, I could push this, but I'm not going to be able to match that next week when I'm even
Yeah,
more dieted. So
yeah,
let's
yeah.
keep it as is. I'm happy to have maintained the strength, and then I'm a little bit easier there. Cool. All right, so just a couple more here. So when you feel ultra tired during prep, and I'm sure this could apply to any diet, uh, far from refeed days, would you add calories? So basically, if you're dieting, you're just like super exhausted, but you don't have a refeed coming up. Do you just suck it up, or do you add some calories there?
Mm. Um, well, I guess I have to start with the premise that I don't really track. I just kind of know what my food should look like
Hmm, okay.
at different stages of the prep, and how like shitty I should feel.
Okay.
And this is just because in hindsight, you could always go back and you can look at where you lost dustings of muscle. And usually it's connected to your body was trying to talk to you. But I don't think you can do this the first time. I think like anything else, the first time you have to learn to work because you don't understand how hard it's going to be to get your first set of abs or whatever your goal
Hmm.
is. So
Yep.
the first time I think you just kind of have to get into that Mamba mentality and then eventually you can go back and kind of self-correct for those things. I do a lot of that. But mostly in that like, maybe 5 pounds ago, I'm like, you know what? This is the sort of shitty I should be feeling um like now maybe. Yeah, I'm like, you know what? Let's throw a kiwi in or something. But also I take into consideration how active I've been on that day. So if I did a whole lot of yard work, it's like, okay, it's like I don't want that estimated 400 calorie deficit or whatever to be double that today.
Hmm.
So let's throw a little bit extra in there. So, but this is something that again you have to have seen things the whole way through a few times, so long as they didn't hurt you.
Right. Yeah.
And and then from there you can go back and be like, all right, like where did I not conserve energy? Because we talked about that with the my rep sets. Like that's kind of what you're doing. Like,
Yep.
us 15 years ago might have taken that dumb rep and now we're stuck.
Yep.
Whereas eventually you just learn and you try to go back and see where you can be more efficient.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, for me, I still do track, but again, that's more like just mentally liking to know what it's at. I have a lot of fluctuations with water weight that can be a little bit of a mind fuck. So I like to be able to know, okay, this is where I'm at. But I could do it intuitively, especially up to like 10%. I mean, if I was doing contest limit, I don't
Hmm.
think I could do that intuitively. Um, but yeah, I think for me. I do kind of a combination where I eat by feel to some degree, but I'm still tracking it. So it's not like I go, most days I don't go into it and think I'm eating, actually almost never would I say I'm eating 1800 today. I'm eating 2000. It's more like I am dieting. Let's see where I end up as long as I'm getting adequate protein. And that could have a 400 calorie range. So I'm still tracking the numbers so I can see over time, but I almost never go into a day knowing the exact number of calories because one, I don't want to have that restriction necessarily. Two, I don't think it's necessary. And three, I'll adapt throughout the week if I'm a little heavier, if I'm a little lighter. So I don't know if that specifically answers the question, but it's kind of an auto regulation. I just like to know what the ultimate number ends up being.
Actually, this brings up a good point because what you kind of do with yourself, I do that with a lot of my athletes who are dieting. So they eventually they freak out because in their spreadsheets there's these caloric ranges, and let's just say it says 18 to 19, like that'll freak them out. They're like, so
Hmm.
which one is it? I'm like, anything in there goes, right? And that level of autonomy freaks them out. Like they think they're gonna mess something up. But as time goes on, I have them like expand those ranges even more so because it reminds me a lot of my buddy Chip in the old town I used to live in, where we're talking about those spin classes and how the instructor never seems to be out of shape.
Yeah,
And like they're just thriving and yelling, and it's like, is he not feeling this? Um, a lot of it's because they know when those pulses are coming because they get to dictate the pace.
right.
So it's a little bit easier to push hard when you're ready to. So as I expand those ranges, it's like, hey, when you're ready to strike, get after it. Recovery is good, sleep is good, easy day. Like go for the lower end, but also don't be afraid to go for the higher end if it's just one of those days. So I think working with these ranges and just kind of learning to navigate within these spaces that like over time you can expand upon is a wonderful skill. People do this in the weight room all the time, right? If
Sure.
225 for five is what you usually do on your bench press, but today 205 for five probably seems right. That's just what you do.
Yep,
And there's no reason we can't do that with dieting.
absolutely. Cool. So last two here. Pascal asks, best way to bring up lagging arms. So obviously it's going to be pretty individual, but I think we can at least generally touch on it.
Yeah. Um, all right. So, yeah, well, the things you want to work on the most, I think you do first, and this can be in the week or in the workout. Um, but also within what's taking place in the strategy, the exercise technique, I think absolutely matters, especially as you progress and your other areas progress. Like people don't realize this, but the bigger and stronger you get, probably the more strict your technique has to be because it's very easy to kind of bro spot yourself with your hips, with your
Right.
knees, with your torso. So like I even catch myself with like lateral raises. I'm like, oh, I'm getting a little bit of trunk flexion now. And that's enough to kind of contaminate the movement and create this false progression. So, yeah, I would just place them early in the week or early in a training day. I've thoroughly enjoyed placing them before my lower body days because they don't seem to take away from the lower body stuff.
Hmm.
And if anything, it's been helpful in that, those nerves you get before a lower body day, you kind of get to wiggle them out in a
Yeah.
way that it doesn't hurt those.
Yep.
And by the time you get there, you're very warmed up and you're just ready to attack the lower body stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I am a fan of increased frequency. I used to actually have an entire, I would do two upper body workouts, and one was basically like a backwards workout, as they call it sometimes. Like I would start with arms and then go to, chest and back and shoulders and all that. I never really noticed anything from that. Obviously, the weights I was using were heavier because I'm less fatigued, but I never noticed like a big benefit from that. But increased frequency for sure, bump it up to two or even three times a week. And then I'm a big fan of just picking two or three, depending on the muscle group, two or three exercises that you can just go ham on and focus on those. So, I mean, it could be anything that you've found effective, but let's say it's like an incline curl, and you just like, okay, this I'm just going to do my best to get as strong as I can, again, moderate rep ranges for this exercise. And I know some like that's not a specific set and rep recommendation people might be looking for, But to me, there is a mentality to it where it's like this is where my focus is. And so every time I go in there and I'm gonna myo rep it, I'm gonna like just force it out. It's not a this is a scientific approach to bring up your arms, but I do think there's something to be said when you're just focusing on that and just like ruling it out. As long as that is progressing over time, you're going to see the progress. Now, obviously, like any method, you're going to have limitations, but to me, part of it is a mental focus and not just where you're physically placing it in the workout.
Yeah, I also think this is where the volume research really comes in handy because arms can take a lot. Like you're
Hmm.
not going to get a bad night's sleep because you went ham on your arm workout.
Yeah.
Um, so this is where people are afraid to play with specialization cycles because they're afraid they're going to lose all the stuff that's doing quite well. But that's just not the case. You got to try it a few times and you're like, oh shoot, like yeah, I was doing 3 sets for my hamstrings that are just naturally pretty good and they look virtually the same in some cases. They even get a little better.
Yeah.
um, and just push more of those resources, those recovery units over to especially something like arms. I think is where you can play with those 25 plus sets a week of volume and not necessarily risk anything terrible happening. Of course, take into consideration what you're doing now, but it is something where, man, like I don't think it'd be crazy if and I have written out these sort of cycles for athletes where they're performing, 30 sets for biceps, 30 sets for triceps, and yeah, they're doing quite well, and it works, especially when you bring the other stuff down.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am also an advocate for those specialization cycles. I haven't actually done too many myself where I've brought the other volume down, which I do think is important. When I've done them, I've just added a bunch of volume. I
Hmm.
do think at this stage of my career, I would need to do that. So, like, I was recently actually just playing around with the idea of actually doing a lower body specialization. I actually wrote it all out. I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, oh, this looks brutal. But with that, I would bring upper body to probably just once a week, maybe like one myo rep set per body part or something, so I could really focus on the other muscle group. But again, part of that is physiological, but I also again think some of that is psychological, where it's like I can't mentally focus on bringing up everything with the volume required at an advanced stage. So let me just put that here, and I'm focusing on quads and hams, or quads and calves, whatever it is for that individual.
Where I've really seen this in practice was with when I was training more powerlifters.
Mm.
Um, like the bench press is kind of like punching power in combat sports. It's like you have it or you don't. Like you're
Yeah,
either a
yeah, yeah.
natural bencher or you're not. And eventually when you're powerlifting, something will happen to your back. And so we put the squat and deadlift, on hold for now. And all of a sudden that bench press that just was not moving, all of a sudden just breaks free. And we're
Mm.
making all sorts of progress. And just like clockwork, where like when it did happen, I'd always let the athlete know, guess what? Your bench press is probably going to make over these next 6 months the progress it's made over the last 3 years.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but yeah, for me, it's challenging to really put things on the back burner. But it might be in the long term, especially once you get into the late intermediate, early advanced stage, probably at the end, the most efficient way to actually get things to grow. It's just really not a fun way to train.
sure. Yep, yep. Just random. I'm just curious. When we met up man, that was last April. Roughly how much did you weigh that time? Were you in the 160s?
No, I was like 175, I think.
Okay, because you were still pretty lean. So, I mean, I know these days you're always lean, but yeah, and the heaviest you had gone, I mean, you went like 240 early on, right? Like you like
Hmm.
really bulked up. That's crazy to
Yeah,
think about,
it's,
but
it's insane to think about.
yeah.
Yeah. I was still playing full court basketball games and stuff. Like it
Really?
was the wonders of being 22.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I honestly I don't see myself ever like before this diet, I was 211.6 was the highest I hit. I'd previously been like 220 one time. And I just don't see myself ever pushing past that. Like honestly, I don't even see myself going above 190
Hmm.
anymore. I just don't think it would be conducive to any further progress. I don't feel as good. It doesn't benefit my life in any way. So I think most of my life I'll probably be 175 to 190 going forward for at least a foreseeable future.
And honestly, Dave, this is kind of something that's been just going through my gears of late. It's been the whole is bulking necessary?
Hmm.
Um, weight training is such a powerful stimulus. Like where I think from day one, you could probably hang around a healthy body fat and just recomp that thing up. Um, it's just, especially for young men, the rate of progression is not going to be the same when it comes to what you're doing in the weight room.
Yeah.
So I think it's good buy-in for especially people who are new because hey, if you started a 160 pound wimp and eventually, a year later you're 190, that's a pretty assertive bulk. It's like, whoa, you are pressing weight that you wouldn't have believed back then. And I think for
Right.
those people, it's a lot of buy-in. But I think once you're in that intermediate phase and you're at a healthy body fat, it might be the best strategy to maximize muscle. Um,
Yeah, I obviously I don't know the answer to this. It's very interesting because certainly you see this a lot. I know like, Helms and you guys have all kind of come around to this idea of like you don't need to do the big bulks. And then of course the counter argument is, hey, everybody who's ever been successful has done those and that got you to the dance, so don't abandon it kind of a thing. I can see both sides. I went through many, many bulks in my life, so it's hard for me to say it's not necessary because I haven't done it without that. But I also do know people who have incredible physiques who, like, yes, they've quote unquote bulked, but they never bulked in the sense of they gained weight, but they never went to any sort of extreme. I don't know the answer, like what does an Alberto Nunez or a DrMaconi look like if, not that we didn't
mhm.
go up and down at all, but if we just kept that range, 10 to 15% and, whatever. I don't know. Like you said, I mean, certainly my last three bulks were like mega bulks. Hey, let's see if I have anything left in the tank. And by the time I cut down, there wasn't anything left. So you could have argued, you could have maybe tried to just recomp instead. I don't think anybody's going to just be 170 skinny fat and get to a 170 diced. Like you got to have some fluctuation in weight over
Yeah.
time. Um, but could most of that be done with 10 to 15 pound shifts and everything? I think probably.
What's a big ask to ask people to be weight stable? Like we just have a hard time with that to begin with.
Hmm.
So I do think what would happen is eventually, like I assume my first day in the weight room, I was like 155, maybe 15% body fat.
Hmm.
I think had I stayed there eventually, that 155 would have been too lean. And it's like you gotta bump
Yeah.
up,
Yeah. Yeah.
to create a better environment. But there's a huge meta-analysis of this, informal one. If you look at world-class powerlifters who are certainly in the advanced stages and beyond, like you'll see it, it's like, man, like I don't know, like Taylor Atwood, Russ Orhey, it's like they're getting too jacked for their division, like that
Hmm.
weight, and because they just what they do because they're weight class athletes, they have to hover at a certain range and improve within that weight range.
Right. Right. Right.
And you see these guys, honestly, I think they make better progress than elite natural bodybuilders because the name of the game is objective progress.
Right.
So like they can't be attached to a certain club of how to like do things, a certain cult. It's either working or it's not. And if it's not working, they're going to change things and keep advancing. But you see it with elite powerlifters all the time. It's like, man, yeah, you have to move up a weight class, man, because you just don't fit here no more. It's starting to become a nuisance.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing I mean, people have heard me say this, but anybody who's like sub 20 years old listening, I really would have told my younger self to not do the big bulks. Because even in high school, I was bulking and cutting by like 30 pounds. And especially in high school, it's just a lot. You're soft too long, and then you finally get lean, but it's for like a month or two, and it's still not as lean as you want because the genetically gifted guy you're looking at who's just naturally diced, like you're never going to get that lean if So it's one of those things where I really would have just said, look, man, be comfortable in 13 to 16% body fat and just focus on the objective gains. You're probably going to
Hmm.
get better progress anyway. You got like going through puberty and all that stuff. That for sure would be my advice to younger lifters is just focus on the objective progress and who, most of you are not going to have 8% body fat, shredded abs through high school. Just accept that and enjoy the journey because the up and down was just too much in high school.
Yeah, yeah, way too much. And especially, I don't know, dieting teenagers. It's not so much the physiological consequences, but more so the mental consequences, I think,
Hmm.
that yeah, they can do some pretty dumb things left to their own doing.
Yep. Cool. Last thing, Nick asks, who are your go-to people or resources for training, diet, supplements outside of Dave McConey and the Brains and Gains podcast, of course?
Let's see. Um, I really enjoy hearing Greg Knuckles spin on things,
Hmm.
so it's almost like something's going on, he's over there thinking about it, and then eventually he drops the album, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and yeah, like, and my boy Eric Helms, same thing. Like he's very good at uh being a Neil deGrasse Tyson
Yeah.
when it comes to just a science communicator, where I think just how there's this misconceptions about what the bros are doing, there's some misconceptions about science and how it's applied, and he kind of brings those two things together really well. Um, Eric Trexler, another great educator as well. Really enjoy hearing his spin on things. Um, let's see. I think I got to throw Kaz in there because, with all this, the optimal movement revolution,
Hmm.
like I think when he started, I was like, bro, you're crazy. And now it's like, oh shoot, like he's this is the big game of telephone somehow, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
right. And it gets really weird, like, 8, 9 persons away. So yeah, when it comes to yeah, just the especially the exercise selection part of things, like that's all he does. That's all he does. Like that's what he
Right.
thinks about 24/7. Um, and but then also I think just me personally, there is such thing as, like, we know this to be true of sports, but the sport, whether you think it's a sport or not, the same thing when it comes to the nerdy aspect of it, because that's how it goes. It's like you have to do some research and then explore that, right? And I think this is where not venturing into just other worlds, other educators and other places, and borrowing ideas from how they look at things, I think is important too. Um, so yeah, just how with sports, it's like, hey, don't get children too much into the weeds with one specific sport. It's like
Yep.
make them do a bunch of sports, explore, then exploit is the model. Um, the same thing when it comes to um, I guess just all things nerdy. It's like I like to venture out, explore, and see how I can take those ways of thinking and apply it to what we're trying to do here.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I'd echo all of that. I big fan, obviously, all of 3DMJ is great. I just listened to Greg Nuckols on Revive Stronger. And yeah, I really do think he's probably one of the better minds in the industry. I think he's generally pretty objective, just a very intelligent individual. Chexer is also great too, listening to him on Mass. And sometimes I'll listen to, there's like a couple articles where Chexer wrote, and he's saying, well, all these people are thinking this, but this is the reality. And I realized at these times when I'm so entrenched in this area, I forget that there are all these people who actually still believe some of this nonsense stuff,
Yeah.
and he does a good job of kind of parsing that out. But yeah, I mean, I like the Revive Stronger podcast, like I said, 3DJ. Those are honestly like most of what I listen to these days are like those kind of core people. I'll see some stuff from Menno here and there. Uh, but other than that, I just don't have as much time to consume as much content unless somebody's sending me like, hey, here's a specific podcast or something like that.
Yeah. Exciting times too, because for example, if I was a high school student now and all this was going on, like I think I'd have more direction in when it comes to academics. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, I want to be in, I don't know, in Eric Helms's lab. Like that's the goal, you
Yep.
know? So what I think, because we've been seeing this in drug tested powerlifting and same thing in drug tested bodybuilding, is that the gene pool's just kind of expanding, and there's some freaky things out there. Like the other day, this is crazy. I found a boxer from the 1900s. They weren't lifting weights in the
Mhm.
1900s, right? His fat-free mass was over 25.
Yeah.
Just boxing, right? And what has me excited is like the incoming minds that are going to come into this in the next 10, 15 years. I think there's going to be We have our all-star roster, right, that we just talked about, but I think there's
Yeah.
going to be so many more and a lot of kids just pushing things to that next level. So
I saw you
I'm excited for that.
yeah, I saw you debating somebody on the like on the whole Jeff Nippard fiasco about like
Oh
somebody's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
there's no
yeah.
way. And you're like, dude, do you realize? And that's what always gets me is like, man, like I've realized steroids are super prevalent. I couldn't look anything like some of these guys, but to have such a limited belief of like what is possible with some genetic freaks, I don't understand that because you see clear non-enhanced genetic variation in other areas. So like why wouldn't that also apply here? So again, I'm not defending the individuals in Jeff Nippard's video or
Yeah.
anything like that, but the just lack of openness to the possibility of some of these things. And I know you're always advocating like, hey, no, there's just a lot of freaks out there, and when you're looking at such a huge sample size.
Yeah, we just truly don't know. Like and like you can look at a genetic freak once they're kind of done cooking, but that's not the same experience as seeing someone who has a predisposition to be very good at this from like day one.
Hmm.
That's when you see the difference and you're like, oh my God, like
Yeah.
this makes no sense. Like um I had a training partner back in the day who didn't train legs, but he was part Polynesian, and within a month he had like I kid you not, like cross striations in his outer quads.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, this makes no sense. And you haven't even started the eating enough protein part of this. So yeah, that part's going to be exciting as well, but it's also going to cause a lot more,
Yeah, sure. Sure.
yeah, a lot more of that sort of controversy, which
Yeah.
it sucks, but it is what it is.
It keeps it interesting. Cool, man. Well, I think people know, but where can we find you for more stuff?
3dmusclejourney.com. You can find everything through there, including our YouTube channel, our 3D Muscle Journey Vault, which is it's basically a program slash system to get you ready for coaching. And yeah, I found the best success with athletes that have gone through those courses because by the time they get to me, kind of like what Trexler said, it's like we're speaking the same language.
Yeah.
And whatever I'm giving them, it's not like shocking because it goes against whatever the lifting culture suggests right now.
Right. Right. Cool, man. All right.